There's a version of running on empty that never makes it into any conversation about burnout. It's not the dramatic collapse, it's not the breakdown at work, it's not even the day you finally admit to someone that you're struggling. It's the ordinary version, the one that just becomes your normal without you ever deciding that it should. You're wired at night, you're flat in the morning, you're short with the people that you care about for reasons that you can't quite name. You're doing the job, the shifts are running, the covers are going out, the team think you're fine. But somewhere behind all of that, you feel hollowed out in a way that you can't explain to anybody, including yourself. And that's what this video is about. Not burnout as a dramatic event, burnout as a slow accumulation, what it actually does to your body and your mind over time, and what it's quietly telling you when it does. Welcome to the Lead Well channel, where we explore the inner world of leadership, well-being, and what it means to build a business and a life that doesn't break you. My name's Trevor, and I've run a multi-award winning restaurant and cocktail bar, but I didn't come from a hospitality background. I built the business from the ground on up, learning as I went, figuring it out in real time. And the thing that I figured out later than I should have is that the body keeps record. It doesn't shout about it, it doesn't demand your attention, it just quietly accumulates everything that you push through, everything that you ignore, everything that you tell yourself you'll deal with later, and then one day later arrives and it's heavier than you expected. I want to talk about that today because I think there's a version of this that almost every hospitality leader that I've ever worked with has recognized, but very few of us have had named for us properly. The body keeps the score. Here's what I mean when I say that the body keeps a record. For years, I was carrying something that I couldn't identify. Not a specific problem, not a crisis, just a constant background hum of tension that I'd gotten so used to, I'd stopped noticing that it was even there. I was sleeping, but I wasn't resting. I'd struggle to fall asleep, but when I got there, it was fine. And then I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with my brain already running, already planning, already rehearsing, already working through the list of things that needed doing and the things that had gone wrong and the things that needed to make sure that didn't go wrong tomorrow. That 3 a.m. brain is something so many people in this industry know and almost none of them talk about because it doesn't feel like a symptom. It feels like part of the job. The price that you pay for giving a damn. But it's not. It's your nervous system telling you something. It's your body running a threat response in the middle of the night because it's been running that version of that response all day and it just doesn't know how to stop. The hospitality industry is structurally brilliant at keeping that response active. The unpredictability, the constant physical and emotional demands, the culture of staying on, showing up, and never letting anyone see that you're struggling. All of it keeps the nervous system in a state of low-level alert that just never fully resolves. And over time, that has consequences, not just for how you feel, but for how you function. What running on empty actually looks like. I want to be specific here because I think the word burnout has become so general that it's lost some of its meaning. So let me tell you what it actually looked like for me, not the dramatic moments, the ordinary daily texture of it. The 3D printing and painting disappeared first. I'd been printing and painting models for years, miniatures, figures, things that had nothing to do with the business or the industry or anything useful. Just something absorbing and creative that I loved. And at some point, I stopped. Not because I decided to stop, because I couldn't access it anymore. And what I mean by that is this: the state that you need to be in to lose yourself in something creative, to follow curiosity, to just make something without it being productive. That state requires a nervous system that has some room in it. When the nervous system is running at capacity just to manage the daily load, there's nothing left over for joy, nothing left over for play, nothing left over for the parts of yourself that exist outside of what the business needs you to be. And I noticed it was gone before I understood what its absence even meant. The other thing I noticed was the quality of my thinking changed. Not dramatically, I wasn't making catastrophic decisions, but there was a narrowing, a loss of perspective. Things that should have been small felt disproportionately significant. I'd find myself giving enormous emotional weight to a single negative review, getting in a feedback loop about the staffing issue that didn't warrant that much of my energy. The ratio between the actual size of the problem and my internal response to it had been shifted, and I couldn't seem to calibrate it back. The irritability was part of it too, not anger. I want to be clear about that distinction because I think it matters. This wasn't a temper, it was a kind of rawness, an absence of buffer. The ordinary friction of running a hospitality business, the things you'd normally absorb without thinking, all started to land differently. And the person who usually absorbed them quietly started reacting in ways that surprised even him. These things, the 3D printing disappearing, the narrowed thinking, the loss of buffer, are not personality traits, they're symptoms. What happens to a person when their system has been drawing down on reserves for far too long without replenishing them. Why hospitality makes it harder. There's something specific about this industry that makes the accumulation faster and the recognition slower. Hospitality has an identity built around endurance. The culture celebrates the person who stays late, covers the shift, absorbs whatever comes, keeps going when it would be reasonable to stop. Those qualities have real value in certain contexts, but they also make it almost structurally impossible to acknowledge when you're in trouble, because the acknowledgement feels like a betrayal of the identity. I'm the person who handles things. I'm the one who the team come to. If I'm struggling, what does that say about me? And so leaders and owners don't say it. They push through instead, and the industry applauds them for pushing through. And the pushing through continues until the body makes it stop. There's also something about the physical environment itself. The noise, the pace, the unpredictability, the emotional labor of hospitality, managing not just the operational demands, but the emotional experience of every person that walks through that door. And that's a particular type of drain that doesn't show up on a rota and can't be managed with a better system. It's just the cost of doing this work. And most hospitality leaders and owners are carrying that cost every single day without any language for what it's doing to them, because the industry doesn't give them that language. The industry gives them targets and incentives and operational frameworks. It doesn't give them a way to talk about what it costs to the person responsible for all of it. That's part of what this channel exists to do. Give that language back. Before I go any further, I want to mention something quickly. If any of this is landing for you, if you're recognizing something in what I'm describing, you don't have to sit with that alone. I built a free community called the Lead Well community, specifically for hospitality leaders and owners who are carrying this kind of pressure and want to be around people who actually understand what that's like. It's not a course, it's not a program, it's a room. A place to have the conversations the industry doesn't make space for. There are tools and resources in there too, but honestly, the most valuable thing about it is not being the only person in the room who knows what this feels like. Links in the description, so come and find us. What your body is actually saying. Here's the reframe I want to offer, because I think it changes how you relate to all of this. Burnout is not weakness. It's not a character flaw. It's not evidence that you're not cut out for this. It's information. When the body starts showing the signs that I've been describing, the broken sleep, the narrowed thinking, the loss of things that used to restore you, it's not failing. It's communicating. It's giving you data about a system that has been drawing down on reserves without replenishing them. And at some point, that's going to show. Think about it this way. Energy is a resource. It has real limits. It can be invested well or poorly. It can be replenished or it can be depleted. And the way that we treat it in this industry, as though it's infinite, as though the right character trait is just to keep spending it regardless of the balance, is what creates the pattern that I've been describing. The leaders who avoid that pattern aren't tougher. They're not more resilient in some inherent fixed way. They've built better systems of putting something back in. They've learned that the replenishment isn't a luxury, it's load bearing. It's what everything else depends on. And that's the align your energy pillar in my Lead Well framework. It's not managing your energy as a performance strategy, understanding it as a fundamental resource that requires active stewardship, and recognizing when the signals your body is sending you are worth listening to rather than just pushing through. Because the pushing through has a ceiling, and the ceiling is lower than you think when the reserves have been running down for a long time. The thing that nobody tells you. There's a gap between burning out and recovering that nobody really talks about. And I want to spend some time here because I think it's the part that people find most disorientating. You recognize that something has to change, you make some adjustments, you step back a little, or you're forced to, and then you wait to feel better. And for a while you don't. Or you feel better in some ways, but worse in others. Or you feel a kind of numbness where the intensity used to be, and you're not really sure whether that's recovery or something else. That gray zone, the space between the pressure and the return to yourself, is real, and it takes longer than most people expect, because what you're waiting for isn't just rest. You're waiting for your nervous system to actually believe that the threat has passed. And a nervous system that has been running in alert mode for years doesn't reset in a weekend or a week or even sometimes a month. The body is conservative about this. It's been wrong before, it's let its guard down and then been put back into a pressurized situation. So it waits, it stays cautious, it needs to see consistent evidence over time before it will really let go. What I didn't know when I was in the gray zone was that the small things were the evidence. The morning routine I was rebuilding wasn't just a habit, it was a signal, a daily message to my nervous system that the day wasn't going to start in emergency mode, that there was a protected space before the demands began, that I existed as a person before I existed as the owner of a restaurant. The 3D printing coming back wasn't a hobby returning, it was the nervous system finding enough room to let joy back in. The painting and the modeling and the hours of disappearing into making something with no commercial purpose, those were signs that the recovery was real, not decoration, evidence. The way back isn't dramatic. What actually helped wasn't a single decision or a dramatic turning point. It was a series of small, deliberate, unglamorous acts of reclamation that accumulated over time. The first was the morning routine. Before I built it, my day started with the business already claiming me, phone in hand before I'd even taken a breath, already behind before I'd even had a thought of my own. The morning routine was the decision to stop that, to carve out a protected window before the day could get hold of me. Not an elaborate ritual, just the decision that for a specific point each morning, I existed as a person rather than as an owner. I'd feed the dog, I'd make a tea, I'd sit in silence, I might do some breath work, I'd look at the day from a grounded place rather than a reactive one. And that sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but what it did was give me back something that I hadn't realized that I'd lost, a moment that was mine, that couldn't be taken by whatever was waiting on the other side of it. The second was the 3D printing, which I've already mentioned, but I want to name it as a deliberate act rather than an accidental one, because I think there's an idea in this industry that hobbies and interests are the first thing to sacrifice when the pressure's high. And what I learned is that they're actually among the last things that should go, because they're doing structural work. They're providing your nervous system with somewhere else to be that isn't inside of the pressure. And when they go, something goes with them. The third was building what I started calling non-negotiables, things that existed in the week regardless of what the business was doing. Not ambitions, not goals, non-negotiables. The gym, time with my wife, the painting, the morning routine itself. These weren't rewards contingent on the business having a good week. They were the foundation, the things that kept me as a person rather than just an owner. And when the business had a hard week, as it regularly did, and regularly does, those things stayed because I've decided that they're non-negotiable, not movable, not the thing that got sacrificed so everything else could be fine. That shift in language mattered more than it might seem. Non-negotiable means you don't have a conversation about whether it happens this week. It just happens, and everything else arranges itself around it. What you should carry from this. If you're running a hospitality business right now and you're recognizing yourself somewhere in what I've described today, here's what I want you to leave with. You're not failing, you're not weak, you're not someone who should have handled this better. You're a person who has been doing an incredibly demanding job in an industry that doesn't give you the language or the permission or the structural support to take care of yourself while you do it. And your body has been keeping score. The way back isn't dramatic. It doesn't require a revelation or a sabbatical or a complete restructuring of the business. It requires small, deliberate, consistent acts of putting something back in before everything gets taken out. One protected morning, one non-negotiable in the week that's yours and nobody else's. One thing that absorbs you completely that has nothing to do with the business. These aren't luxuries, they're load-bearing. They're what the sustainable version of what you're building actually depends on. Start small. Start this week and give it time to work, because the nervous system is conservative and it needs to see consistent evidence before it believes the evidence, and it will believe it. Given enough of it, consistently enough, it will believe it. We started this video talking about a version of running on empty that doesn't look dramatic from the outside. The ordinary daily texture of it, the wired nights and the flat mornings, and the loss of the things that used to restore you. What I hope that you're taking from this is that those things are not just part of the job. They are information. They are your body communicating something worth listening to. And if you want to be around other people who are in this industry and having these conversations, the Lead Well community is free and the link's in the description, so come and join us. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and a subscribe. It helps me, it helps the channel, and it helps people like us find the content that really matters. And as always, I'd love to remind you that you matter too. Don't forget that.